I just want to welcome all of you. We're going to introduce a tool called the Conscious Capitalism Activator today, really designed as a practical guide to help people get their first moves, to really take the concepts and the ideas of conscious capitalism and put them into play in their business. We're going to introduce a little bit about how this came to be and walk through a number of things on the session. The first thing I want to do is, actually, before I do that, let me just thank a couple of folks that were really foundational to this. This project came along as a result of an invitation by Alexander and team to get together with a group of chapter leaders to talk about a certified training model. And the group of folks that got together originally were Mauricio Goldstein from Brazil, Lisa Weaver from Dallas, Tom Brady from Rochester, New York, Diane Janovsky, excuse me, Diane, for mispronouncing that, from Arizona, Lee Capps in Chicago, Scott McIntosh in Arizona, and Thea out of Chicago. And really, we all came together to really put some ideas of where does a certified model fit. And at the time, the conversation was that really the concepts are so beautiful, people get so excited, but how do we make it real? And maybe that's something we should look at before we get into the certification model. And that's how this came up, that a couple of brave souls raised their hands and said, we'll get together. And that was Thomas and Amy and myself. And we said, we'll try to wrangle this really, really challenging thing of like, how do you help people get one or 3 steps to get started on Monday? So that's the context, that's the appreciation, and CCI, Alexander, Jess, and Christina have been absolute champions for really supporting and endorsing this, and we'll open up more about it, but I wanted to start out with some big props. So let me pass it over to Amy. She's going to tell you a little bit about the agenda for today's conversation, and here it is. Amy, over to you.
Okay. Yeah, so what I wanted to share with you is first of all, what we're going to be covering today. So the first question is, what is the Conscious Capitalism Activator? And Steve will talk more about that. But I wanted to just throw in that right from the start, there's been a real kind of purpose to all of this that we tried to stay as close to as we could. And the idea was to create a tool for chapter leaders that would enable them to immediately add tangible value to their chapter members or communities. So really giving them a way to answer the how to do it question. So that was kind of our purpose right from the start, still is what is guiding us through everything that we're doing right now. But I just wanted to share with you what we were trying to do. We'll also be talking about how the activator supports the movement and the field guide in particular, which came out right about the same time as the activator came out. We'll be sharing an activation example, and also putting the activator into action. Although because this is a 1-hour phone call, we aren't going to be able to spend a lot of time on that one. We'll be talking about how you can use the activator in your chapter, what are some of the options, and we're going to be asking you for feedback and contributions, specifically contributing documents and videos and things to the activator. So we'll be doing that at the end as part of the Q&A.
Hey, Amy, let me just interrupt you to ask if everybody could just mute themselves. There's some background noise that makes it a little tough to hear, and that's what I was trying to fix visually a minute ago. But thanks, it looks like you guys have done so. So back to you, Amy.
I'm done. That's the session.
All right, cool.
So,
oh, beautiful. Well,
okay.
Thank you for doing that. All right. And again, where we wanted to start was what is this thing called the activator? It really, as Amy had said, it was first and foremost, it was a resource for chapters to make the 4 tenets tangible, actionable, and put that into play, first thing they get back out of the meeting or out of the session or out of the introduction. It was also really designed as a pilot to really model this idea of open sourcing content and a new possibility for our movement. What if everybody gave a little bit of their time, talent, and treasure to serve the greater good of the movement. And that's what Amy and Thomas and I came together, and this was a pure donation of love to build this first and foremost for the chapters, but also we do want to embrace the capitalism side of this. So we want to be able to make sure that this tool can be used in your chapters to generate revenue. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the conversation. And then also we're talking about putting together some additional tools that supports resources for people. But we wanted it to be a big attractor to the movement, something that you could talk with your friends about and give them something tangible and say, here, here's an idea of what it is and where you might start making this real. So that's a little bit about what the Activator is. We debuted this thing to an amazing crowd. You can see this group of badass community chapter leaders at the Dallas conference. There's about 100 of us there. I believe that was about the number. And it was an incredible introduction. We got such a beautiful and positive response because this idea of open source and of and by and for the people just really hit people at home. And so far we've got 11 of the 40 chapters that have reached out and said, we'd like to have a customized version of this to use in our chapter community. And we'll talk a little bit about how to do that, but that's just kind of a quick overview on how we opened this thing up. Let's see, we also open up a conversation with the Brazil team who is looking at taking a copy of this Activator and modifying it for the university world with a few other folks like the Arizona team with Scott and a few other champions for really preparing the workforce of the future. And so that's really cool. There will be a second version of this for universities that's in the works. And thanks to Thomas and a number of other folks around the world, we've got 4 flavors in the works for languages. English, we've got Spanish working. Mike has offered to translate in German for us. And we already have a Portuguese translation, so that's coming up as well. So we're really working to have this be a tool that can work for lots of different cultures, chapters to really serve the greater good. All right. So here's the big conversation. Conscious capitalism, it activates people. This is part of what we chose the name. When you guys have all probably had this experience of sharing this idea and the 4 tenets, and people get so excited. They get so hopeful, and it just generates possibility, especially for kids and millennials that have been looking at like dragging themselves through the glass for a business degree for the next 20 to 30 years. And a lot of us that have been on the court for a while that just didn't see much hope for the future of business. This is really such a big piece of why we all get so excited about this beautiful movement. But then there's some moment, and the moment for me was when my brother-in-law, God bless him, he goes, dude, I love it. I checked out the site. I'm into it. I'm totally drinking the Kool-Aid. I love what it's about. But here's the thing, I'm busy. I can't read the book. If you can't tell me what I do on Monday, then, like I'll support it, but it really isn't going to have much of an impact in my life. And that's the question that a lot of people ask. So what do I do to get this started? How do I actually get this conversation going? What are my first steps to make this real? And that's what we were really that was what we were designing to solve with this Activator program. And part of the beauty is that this movement and the philosophy of the 4 tenets, it really is a practice-based philosophy. It's non-prescriptive. It's different than a B Corp where you have to go through a select group of criteria to get on board and then you're part of the tribe. Because in conscious capitalism, there's no right way to be a conscious business. There's no prescriptive approach. It's a continuum. And we talk about that often, that it's about really understanding the philosophy and then starting to be able to apply this to your own life, to your own leadership, to your company, in your community, your environment, whatever that is. And so it's because the ideas are so fuzzy, it's part of what attracts people to it, but it's also part of the challenge of how to put it into place. And so the goal of the Activator was to help people find the you are here spot, to be able to understand what the 4 tenets are, to ask them 3 specific questions to say, based on the question, for instance, what's the purpose of your organization? You might be in one of 3 spots. So we went through and wrangled, well, what are 3 places people could be? For instance, with purpose, it could be that, what do you mean purpose? It's about money, right? What else is there? Well, you might start with the first 3 actions of level A. If you say, well, purpose, yeah, there's a mission statement in the lobby, but I don't remember it and it doesn't really live here. Well, then there's some indication that you started a purpose, but You might start with level B, and then level C would be like, yeah, we know our purpose, but we're not leveraging it much. So let's face it, this is a starter kit. This is almost like training wheels for how to get into action. For anybody that's been around this for a while, for the chapter leaders, this will be excited to introduce to new people, but it might seem a little bit lightweight, and it's deliberately lightweight. And we'll talk about how it was meant to be an on-ramp to the movement and to get people connected with the community and to dig deeper through things like the field guide. So the whole thing was, how do you teach people how to fish? How do you really give them the ideas and a starting point to be able to say, oh, okay, if I follow this thinking, not what to think, but how to think, I can see how I could even do more of this kind of stuff in my chapter. So that's really the goal of this and our walkthrough today. So I'm going to turn it over in a second. The biggest thing is that if we can use this to create a stronger community of practice, of conscious capitalists out there, and to be able to help people have a resource to come together in dinner settings or casual groups or in a chapter, or even if you have a friend that says, what are you talking about? I'm not sure what you mean. Send them the set of documents. That was the goal. So that's the whole thing. If people get excited to go to the CCI site, to get on their mailing list, to consider one of the annual conferences, the CEO or the annual gathering, or to plug into their local community, that's the real driver of what we see the ultimate goal for this. So what I'd love to do is turn this over to Thomas. Thomas, are you on the call yet? I know you were waiting for getting some internet connection. All right, I'm going to tell him on text. I'm going to channel my best inner Thomas. Okay. So how the Activator supports the field guide is, if you look at the picture on the left, this is the training wheels. This is the sampler, the appetizer, the starter course. And then the field guide teaches you how to build this out at scale. It works as much for an individual entrepreneur as for a company. But this, if someone doesn't have time to read the book, well, maybe they'll take time to take a look at the Activator docs. And if they can see immediate value where they get excited, then they'll plug into the community, they'll plug into the chapter, the international movement, and then they'll be able to get into the field guide for that deeper practical application. And a bunch of other amazing stuff that Thomas would have said if he was on the phone call. So let's see, we might come on and we might back up. But this is really the intention, is that these 4 worksheets that are available, customized to your chapter, so that you can send these out or share them in your chapter in whatever way you want, are designed as open source tools of and by and for the people. And all we ask is that you give attribution to those that helped create the Activator, and you can use it with your chapter logo. This will probably be available to the public for those that aren't connected to a chapter, and we're talking with CCI now about how we could utilize this with the more informal community gatherings too, to help them have a context. And in addition, a couple of folks from our Grassroots team, DJ, who's on the call, and Glenn Meyer from the Las Vegas chapter, and DJs from San Diego, are going to put together a facilitator structure so that you can really have a way to engage in this conversation as a group to be able to keep that moving. DJ, anything else you want to add on to that, or you think that's good for now? You might be muted. Okay, we'll say that's good for now. All right, so Wonder Twin Powers Activator. That was Thomas. I don't know what he was going to say, but it was going to be funny, and I'm sorry I just left a big thud with that one. So, all right, so let's talk about sharing an example. And if Thomas comes on and we can roll back to where he was and have any additional insight, we'll do that. But I want to turn this over to Amy to talk about how you might introduce this within your chapter community, how you might use it in a slide presentation to actually walk people through how to utilize it. So Amy, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So this was actually at the conference. This was the bulk of our presentation because we really got people involved and engaged in using this, and so that they could see how it worked. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just to think of these answers to this question rather than actually taking the time to write them down. But it's going to be the most meaningful if you think of one of these three. It might be a client. If you're a consultant, it might be a client that you've worked with recently, and you need to know their organization very well. You might want to think of your own business, if you have your own business or another company that you know well. Or in some cases, some people might want to just think about their own Conscious Capitalism chapter. So that will help us as we go through how to use the activator. So we're just going to use one of the 4 tenets of conscious capitalism today. So Steve, do you want to roll?
Yep. Here we go.
All right, so the first question, of course, is, we'll be using purpose. What is the higher purpose of your organization? And as Steve said earlier, we identified basically 3 levels. So level 1 is we have no idea what the purpose is. Our purpose just feels like it is just to make money. Level 2 is there is some idea of our purpose, but it's never been clearly defined, or it feels lost or faded. And then level 3 is we know our purpose, and we have not yet leveraged it in creative and resourceful ways. Now, there could be, as it came up at the conference, there could be a 4th level. Yes, that's right. We're calling them A, B, and C, not 1, 2, and 3. But there could be a 4th level, which is, we are awesome with our purpose, and we have leveraged it in creative and resourceful ways. But this is really more aimed at people who are just beginning to walk that path of conscious capitalism.
Beautiful.
So you can roll.
So here's the visual of just what the worksheet looks like, how those 3 questions are framed, and then whatever the answer is, Amy, you just, and we'd have them write that down in that action box below, right?
That's right.
Very
so
cool.
It's just taking a moment to say these are the reasons I picked the answer I picked, and just to check and make sure that you did get that right. And then on the left there, you see the definition of higher purpose, which is taken straight from the conscious capitalism definition of higher purpose, what's on the website. And that's the case with all of our 4 tenets.
All right.
So, yeah.
And then here are the responses.
So there's 3 suggested initiatives for each level, depending on what you came up with. I don't know if I should just let people read or whether I should go through it, but that first level is, to actually contact the founder, research the company's history, gather the leadership team together to explore the impact of the business, why it exists, and then to review other companies' purpose statements to help to begin to create a first draft purpose statement. So that's if you've got nothing right now, you can use that. At level B, so you've got the beginnings of a purpose statement, but perhaps it's not clear to everyone. One of the things that we suggested is identify 3 to 5 people who you feel really exemplify the purpose of the company, who are expressing it through their actions, and invite them to be part of the team that is going to take this forward. Then create a draft purpose statement. You started it in level A, but here you're really creating that draft purpose statement, sharing it with your employees to get feedback on that. You want to see that it really reflects why the business exists. And then you go through a validation process. You validate that it is a compelling purpose, that it inspires a collective vision for your employees. And you ask the team to identify 3 to 4 instances where the company you are in alignment or are not in alignment in terms of decisions made, research and development, investment systems, and metrics. So that's what you do at level B. Now, if you're at a bit of a more advanced level where you actually do have a clear purpose, but you maybe aren't using it so well, then you can look at integrating your purpose with your strategy. Get strategy involved, ensuring all strategic decisions are aligned with the purpose. Then gathering together a group of employees, key customers, vendors, investors, so your stakeholders basically, to review your purpose and explore how it impacts and relates to and inspires them in their day-to-day decisions and actions. And then the last one is to create a purpose team to generate internal initiatives to bring purpose to life in the business and have monthly alignment sessions to amplify the purpose. You will create project initiatives to activate purpose through new products, services, policy, community engagement.
Awesome. And
yeah.
Amy, let me just introduce, let me just take a second to gush on you, because between you and Thomas, both with 10 to 20 years of doing this type of integration work with companies and organizations, that's really what it is, guys, is it's important to recognize the wood behind the arrow here as far as the strength and skill that Amy wouldn't gush on herself about, and Thomas probably not either, but I can do that because they were my partners in this thing. And there's just a lot of thought here to put together the most broad and expansive starting point. And again, in the idea of teaching people how to fish, hopefully you start to come up with your own situational questions, because that's really the whole art of this movement, is taking the concepts and putting it in practical application. And you'll see there's a reference to go deeper into the field guide on any of these areas, and it tells you the specific chapters as well. Amy, what else would you add? You didn't see that gush coming.
Oh, no, I didn't. So one of the things that I thought was interesting was that some of the people who used it at the Leaders Forum actually found themselves sort of between A and B. And so they had some A actions and they had some B actions. And so that is part of how they customize their plan, is to identify which actions seem the most relevant to them, and wrote these down. And then the really exciting thing to me is once you've got that, once you have identified, say you identified that you're going to do 2 of the 3 in the B category, then you see the little Q code there, and you can actually use a Q code reader, and it will take you exactly to the resources that we've identified and are still in the process of identifying, that can help you to actually have videos, have books, have articles, and have worksheets that you can use, really practical things that you can use to take that action plan forward.
Awesome. And you know, the idea is to, by making these worksheets available, whether you print them out, whether you show them on screen or make them available digitally, and to have people leave with something in their hand has been powerful. We did this recently, and people were just excited to come home, sit in the comfort of their own home on the couch, and look at something that not only gets them inspired about that idea, but gets them inspired to share with their family and their community, because it gets them closer to the actual how-to of this. And so we're going to do a little sharing in a few, but we wanted to also show you a little bit about the resources and what that looks like. And so behind this set of worksheets is a website that largely Thomas put together and we've been playing with, and you'll see how there's a direct barcode Q scan, but also the link itself that'll take you to a particular page of the activator that would be specific to either level A, level B, level C, in each of these 4 tenets. And when you look at that, and let's just go ahead and, oops, sorry, I've got to stop the share for a second, or just get the activator site back up. Yeah, so when you look at this, we've got basically a number of pages on the main activator site. We are looking at just basically the 4 tenets. It's a quick introduction. It gives people a sense of what the activator is. It gives some props to the thought mothers and fathers behind the movement down here that are standing on the shoulders of those incredible giants that brought forth this whole movement, a way to get in touch with us. And then we also put a little bit of information about who the folks are that put it together, props to the collaborators, a way to engage so you can fill out a form if you'd like to be able to contribute, and we'll talk more about that. And then the activator itself is, we always want to keep promoting the book, the field guide, and then let people make a request for their set of activators. Currently, here are the 9 chapters participating. We're going to be building some endorsements and testimonials. And then also, you guys can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Yep. And then in each of these sections, as you can imagine, what we wanted to do is we took the official Conscious Capitalism intro videos up front so people can see a quick high level. And then say you're at purpose level A, you're going to basically have an opportunity to come to this page specific. It's going to reference what chapters you'd go to. It's going to have that intro video again, and then some other related videos like Simon Sinek, Ask Why. You've got Roy Spence, John Mackey. We've got some suggestions as far as books. And in other areas of the site, we've actually got some donated resources and worksheets that folks have been able to provide just to be able to give you different tools. And as an example, under Conscious Leadership, just want to take a beat to kind of show you what that looks like. Books on conscious leadership itself. Amy donated this leadership framework as an example, and it's open source. Use it with attribution. We've got the Harvard Business Review Emotional Intelligence Quiz, the Barrett Values Center Values Assessment, and we want to invite you guys to donate as well and contribute to the resources that support the chapters as we get out there and share this stuff. So we come back into presentation mode, give you guys a sense. And again, for those of you that like the QR scanners, there's that fanciness. There's the activator resources. And then again, what you would do is you would go into the next tenet with your team. Amy, anything else you want to say about like that piece before we move on?
No, I think you've covered it very well. Yeah. So
cool. So let's talk a little bit about just making it real, putting it into action. And before we do, actually, let me ask this. Let me go back one. And let me ask for a couple of folks just to share briefly. What I'd like to do is ask Alexander, if you're on. It might be one of the first times you've seen kind of this finished product, Alexander. So I'd love to ask you to share. You know, you've been such a great supporter of not just the activator itself, but the open source model in which we put this out. Any comments, any thoughts, anything to share with the community? You might be on mute.
Oh, we might have lost him. He might have just been between flights or something.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So I had a couple of other folks on the line that we wanted to check in with. And I know we've got Tom from Rochester on the line. Tom, I'd love to ask you to share just, you know, what you've seen in Rochester, how you put this into play in your chapter. You on?
Okay. Yep. Can you hear me?
We got you.
Yep.
Good. Okay. Well, first of all, you know, we in our mission statement, the first few words of our mission statements is we are students of conscious capitalism principles, blah blah blah. So this is really so consistent with what we're trying to do. And in the beginning, you know, we read Conscious Capitalism and tried to talk about it at chapters, and it kind of went over not so, you know, it was usually just us that talked about it. So and then in our expectations of being a member, it's bring conscious capitalism principles into your sphere of influence, whether that be your business, you know, whatever. So, you know, this is, you know, to me, so consistent with, you know, what we need to do. So we often have, you know, one of our things is to celebrate conscious businesses right here in Rochester. And the person that we had come in, she was actually talking about her leadership journey as an immigrant, and now has a 10-person consortium of insurance companies or whatever. But so she focused on conscious leadership. So we gave everybody who attended, about 30 people, copy of the activator. We spoke in high level like we always do about the 4 tenets, but then we're actually able to go through the higher purpose sheets. And one of the things we did was listen to Juliana, and then she's going to explain where she thinks she is on that A, B, or C, and what she's done. And it worked perfectly. And again, this is the first meeting we've had a chance to use it, and it's going to be kind of a standard operating procedure. And then I just got a note from a CEO member who's not active, but he just bought a business. And he says, I'm finally going to be able to use conscious capitalism principles in my new business. I'm going to start talking to my people about it. And because he hadn't been around lately, I sent him a note and said, well, I've got just the thing for you. I sent him a copy of the activator, and we're going to have a conversation. But he's tickled pink to think that now he can, and he already is a pretty good facilitator. Whether he'll want help or not is another story. But to him, this was a perfect way to start that conversation with people who may know very little or nothing about conscious capitalism. And, this is what he believes in so deeply. So there's several other examples, but I'm probably one of the biggest proponents of this and what the potential is, particularly as we add to it. And that open source, like you said, it's not prescriptive. There's lots of different ways to dance and lots of different steps you can have, and have, the richer that resource guide gets, the better. The more books, the more exercises. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I think that Alexander might be on the call, and if he is, and Alexander, if you're able to unmute, are you there?
I am. Hi.
Hey, thanks for jumping in. Earlier, I was giving you a shout out, just seeing if you'd be interested in just sharing your thoughts. What's had you be such a big advocate and supporter of this initiative, and any thoughts you have that you might want to share with the crew.
Thanks. Sorry about missing that before. There was a little technical difficulty there, but the reason I'm excited about this is because resources like this really are the kind of thing that I want Conscious Capitalism International to support more and make sure we're distributing more. The idea of creating more resources to introduce conscious capitalism to people, to understand where they are on this journey, to provide from one community member, this team of community leaders who came together to put this together and share it with others, is exactly the kind of thing that's going to help this community thrive. So I think this is an incredible model and tool for people to use, and hopefully inspire additional resources to go in new directions with this, because this isn't the end all be all. This is a starting point, and we're going to need a lot more afterwards from this. And hopefully more people can use this to bring more members into the conscious capitalism community. So thank you to Steve, Amy, Thomas, Tom, everyone who worked on this to bring this together for the whole community. And I'm really excited to see this put into action.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bud.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
I did want to mention that's one of the things that really clicked for us recently, was how much this will bring people to conscious capitalism who aren't in a chapter's area and who might want to create a chapter. So we're really hoping that it will, or create a unit of that is going to be addressing conscious capitalism. So I'm really excited about that.
That's so cool. And you guys, I know that Thomas is super bummed that he's not on. He was not having any luck finding internet, getting connected, and he was in flight, getting ready to go somewhere. So just know that he had so much other cool stuff to talk about, because Thomas is a co-creator of the recent field guide with Raj and Timothy Henry as well. So the honor that we had to be able to have him involved in that really beautiful, huge reference manual for those that want to go deep into the integration and application of that, and also have the perspective here, was part of that. And part of it was the awareness that as a movement, this open source idea is so aligned with who we are. and to be able to give a little bit of everyone's collective energy and give some of your best stuff away is one of the marks of our movement, and that's what we want to invite you guys into. So let me go back to the slide deck for a second. Let me just put this up and see where we are with having walked through it. You now know where the resources are. You know that there's a whole site before it, back there. And if you don't have this as a chapter, this set of worksheets now, just make the request using the form that's on the website, and we will put your custom logo, provide us with the URL for your web address and the logo for your chapter, and we'll put together that customized set of worksheets for you like that and send them out. And we are talking about some cool things. We're talking about an online 6-week program that we'll share more about, but also being able to maybe customize this as an electronic assessment so that people can print a PDF. But in the meantime, you've got the worksheets to use as you will. So what we'd like to do is open up the last 20 minutes or so of the call about how you can use this in the chapter. And this is where we can get into some Q&A, but let me just introduce and open this up. First of all, the slide deck that you're looking at, we want to go ahead and build out the worksheet just like we did for those 5 or 6 slides around higher purpose that you could guide people through in a room. And we'll do it for the 3 other tenets as well. And we'll provide this as a Google Docs available template that you can dice and slice how you wish, add in other messages, use in your chapter to present this. And again, with attribution to the folks that were the creators and the contributors to this, feel free to use it. Feel free to have your communities use it. They can take it back to their companies. They can use it in their coaching consulting practices. All we ask is that they give attribution. You can set up and structure events using all 4 of these and walk through the entire set and have people interactively working at the session and do that probably in a 90-minute evening session. Or like we did, you could do a purpose event with a speaker or a panel and then break this in to take it beyond what most chapters have been doing, which is showcasing the sage on the stage from some conscious business. And then sometimes people will leave the event going, so is that what conscious capitalism is? And so it gives us a chance to raise the bar and become much more experiential in the way we do this. But there's no limitation to how you use this in the chapter. And in fact, Amy brought up a great point, which I'd love you to speak to, Amy, about how you really leveraged it as you engaged with the community to get some of your founding sponsors for the Portland chapter. So could you speak to that real quickly?
Yeah, I've actually got two good examples of that here, but the most recent one was just a couple of weeks ago. We had a company, some of you will know New Seasons. It's kind of like the Whole Foods of the Pacific Northwest, and it's like an organization that has a lot of love and is a great organization up here. And we were hoping to get them on board as a sponsor. They came to our event. They bought a table. They were very active at our event. And so I went and presented to their executive team because they wanted it to, if they were going to become a sponsor, they wanted it to be a unanimous decision. So I presented to their executive team. I didn't actually give them the presentation you just saw, but I just talked about the activator and explained to them what it was and how we wanted to use it. And they got very, very excited about that. And it definitely got them across the line in terms of being a founding sponsor for us, which is a significant financial contribution for us. And so what they are wanting to do with it is they want every store manager of all of their stores for New Seasons to go through this process of using the activator. And so we've just got to do a little bit of negotiating how that's all going to work, but it's great. And we definitely, it was a big plus in terms of getting them on board as a sponsor.
That's beautiful.
The other one I just wanted to share with you is kind of quick, but I think it's a good story, is somebody who had just become a small business member of our chapter. And I sat down with him because I just wanted to kind of understand how we could serve him, you know, what were his needs. And so we had this conversation, and again, I told him about the activator and briefly showed him, and he just said, wow, he said, for my own business, I have just engaged a consultant for the last couple of months to help me identify the purpose of our business. And he said, if I'd had this, I never would have had to engage an external person. I could have done this using what you've provided here. And that was really exciting to hear. Yeah.
Wow.
So I just wanted to share those two. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, Amy, that this is not to say this should replace consultants, because ultimately what's going to happen is people will say, okay, now how do I get help doing this? And so Amy, Thomas, and I are available, but what we're planning to do is modify the Activator site to say we're part of an ecosystem of incredibly qualified integrators, coaches, consultants, practitioners of these arts that have been on the grid for a long time doing this work. So maybe we'll have a feedback form, we find out what the need is, and then we can help to point people in the right direction to someone that can be a guide for them to support them how they wish. One thing I wanted to share before we move on to the fourth point was I was honored to be asked to come and present to the West Coast leadership team of Whole Foods Market last week. Jess Peabody invited me last year. They invited me back this year. And what a crazy gift it was to talk to a whole bunch of leaders of Whole Foods Market that didn't even know that there was a movement called Conscious Capitalism. They just thought this is just something they have to learn in the way they're supposed to act at work. So it was this incredible gift to be able to say, hey guys, by the way, you have a rich heritage of what started this entire global movement. And here's a tool to kind of help you guys with just first steps. And they were doing the training. And that team already models those tenets more than you could ever imagine. But there were also leaders in the Amazon world that were there from HR looking to say, how do we make this real across the culture? And so what a beautiful thing to contribute to there too. So that was awesome. I want to go to the fourth bullet, which is generating revenue within with the Activator for your chapter. Now, the last couple of points are pretty fuzzy. They're still work in progress. But our intention is to be able to have you as a chapter take your customized version and use it however you wish. Use it as a leverage point and adding value in the community like Amy did to be able to excite people of why they would want to be part of funding the organization. You could build a series of workshops around it that you charge for that you could use as a revenue stream. You could build a coaching model. You could build anything that you wanted. And that's something that we'll talk a little bit about, but there's very big room for ideas, for iteration, and we'll be exploring some of those, and we'll take a few minutes at the end for Q&A around it. The other thing that we want to invite you to is we realize we want to put together a 6-session online workshop that is really the like a 40-day activation. How do you take these ideas? How do you start moving? Have a little bit of an accountability structure. And we want to invite you, the chapter community leaders, to help us co-create this through a pilot that we're going to put together in about probably 6 or 8 weeks. We'll launch it. And we'll have a short set of maybe 12, maybe 15 seats. So if you're interested in being part of that, not only will you be able to shape that 6-week activation program, but also you'll be able to have the template by going through it to do that as a revenue stream in your own chapter if you'd like as well. Or what we're working on is once we get the online program set up, we can set you up likely as an affiliate so that if you want to just point people from your website over to the 6-week program that Amy and Thomas and I host, that's cool. And inside of this program, there will not only be the weekly modules, but we'll have other different videos, small 2 to 5 minute videos about how this applies for each level. And we're going to do a mix of the 3 of us. And we also want to invite the Toms and the Theas and others to be able to provide a couple of small videos to be able to speak to different parts of the value you'd like to contribute. So it truly can be a collaborative effort. The second to last thing is these circles and the facilitation structure that Glenn and DJ are working on. This would work really beautifully with CCI for those informal chapters that want to just come together and talk about how to put these ideas in place. And again, we just ask that you give attribution back to the Activator team, to CCI in general for the beauty of the 4 tenets model in itself. And let's just open up a little bit of Q&A. Because we are talking about how we can do some ongoing support. We'll be supporting it as part of our ongoing Grassroots call. We can answer questions. We may create a standalone Q&A call for chapters or just for the general public about questions, and have thought leaders from the community come on to answer questions about putting it into play. And then, of course, the 6-week, 40-day challenge pilot that we're asking for and inviting your collaboration. So what else? What other questions do you have about what we've opened up so far, so that we can jump in and really see what your guys' thoughts are about what's opening up as a result of seeing this? So who wants to go first?
This is DJ.
Beautiful. Hey, DJ.
Yeah, since sorry, I have to get my thought around this. We had talked in the past about there being some ways that we wanted chapters to use the activator, and possibly some ways that we weren't ready for them to use the activator quite yet. And I was wondering if you would talk about, hopefully, if there are any restrictions, so that people know what those might be right now.
Can you get me closer to reminding me what we were talking about?
I'm trying to remember, but I think it had something to do with like selling it or something. Oh, sorry. I just remember that you talked about having some ways that you wanted it used and ways you might not want it used right now. And
well, I think the only thing I could think of that's super obvious right now is that, say somebody takes the activator we've customized for a chapter, and they blow out both the activator logo, the chapter logo, they put their own consulting logo on it, and they go use it in their practice. That's what we're saying is uncool. Like, let's just give attribution. We may end up opening an option to say, like, how would you go about asking and qualifying to have your own logo on this with the activator logo? But that's really the only thing, is we're trusting that people will be cool, that they will honor that and really honor the work that was put in and the heart behind it that was meant as a contribution. And I trust a lot on the non-stinkiness of this community. So we'll leave it at that for now. And if any further clarification comes up, let me know. Who else? I'd love to hear from anybody on the call, just general feedback, ideas, questions, thoughts about it. Let's get a little bantering happening. We got 7 or 8 minutes left.
Sure.
Doug has something.
Lisa, you got the screen, sister. You're on.
Lisa, go ahead.
I'm happy to talk if you need people to talk. So, you guys, this is awesome. I'm so impressed and so honored to be among you, and feel like I haven't done anything to help. So I said, sign me up for the pilot. If I can be helpful, I would love to be. And let's see, what else can I tell you? The LA chapter is already planning to use this as an integrated part of our next PXP conference in December. And what we were thinking about doing is having in between the keynote speakers and the workshops throughout the day, having little segments of the activator. So, 15 minutes maybe each all the way through the day. And it didn't occur to me, but if you guys are in LA, maybe you want to run those sessions for us, Steve or Amy or any of you, or teach me how to do it. I guess I'll figure it out. But anyway, so we're really excited to have it. And I also love your point about using it to bring in like founding sponsors. We're doing a lot of outreach right now for PXP sponsors. And I think we need to just make sure. We were going to give them the field guide, but I think we offer to send one of us in to actually walk them through this activator. So thanks for that too.
Amazing. Wow, Lisa, thank you very much. And I know we're just waiting on your official logo. We'll have that set through to you, but thanks for making the request. And yes, got you down for the pilot. Awesome. Who else? What's opening up? What do you guys dig about this, and or what questions might you have?
Sure.
Hi, this is Darby from, go ahead.
Oh, and I asked Doug to share, because Doug they was part of the Florida team. They got excited, they got their customized set. Doug, what do you got for us, brother?
Well, I just wanted to share that the set is very useful for me, because I have a tough time being concise when I talk about this. I tend to get really excited. And so this gives me a track to run on that helps me kind of keep it short and let people reach for more information rather than me unloading on them for 20 minutes. We currently have an outreach that we're working on through some local Rotary chapters, and I'm really excited to use the tool with them. to help them see this more as, or more than just a philosophy, but also some actual, blocking and tackling of how to use this in their business. So it's the pragmatic piece that I'm working to build in myself. So I really enjoy that structure of it.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much, Doug, for sharing. I appreciate it. Give Vinny and the team my best too, and we appreciate you being on. That's amazing.
Will do.
All right, a couple other comments before we close up. We got 4 or 5 more minutes left. Who else? What are you inspired about? What possibility? What question do you have?
Hi, this is Darby from Boston. How are you all doing?
Darby, hey, it's good to hear your voice.
Well, great to hear your voice too, and congratulations. This is a wonderful opportunity, and it's interesting from a timing perspective for Boston. We'd love to be involved in what you're doing in terms of a pilot, because we actually are ready to go out to corporate sponsors and corporate memberships, and we were just saying it would be wonderful to be able to do like a breakfast session with local business leaders and do kind of a meet and greet and an overview of conscious capitalism. So this is a perfect opportunity to use a lot of the work that you all have put together to foster that dialogue, because we've been doing it, bootstrapping it, and it'd be wonderful to align it to the organization and roll it out in a bigger conversation across the Boston and Massachusetts business community. So this is great timing. It's very exciting.
Woohoo! All right, Darby, thanks, and it's good to hear. It's been about a year since we talked. Reach out on the Activator site for a request and send us through your logo, and we'll get that customized set through to you. So
that's great. That's great. Thank you.
You bet. All right, couple more. Who else wants to jump in?
Steve, it's Craig in Philly. Also feel that we can take full advantage of this in terms of leveraging with founding sponsors, attracting potential members, and even with existing members who may have upper management that they need to work up, well, all around through all the stakeholders. This tool, at least the small amount that I learned about today and then from Gina last month, I can easily see it as being something that will be a heck of a lot easier to convince somebody to take a look at than reading an entire book. It's a nice mid-level commitment.
Thank you so much, Greg. I really appreciate it. Well, guys, we're just right at the top of the hour. Is there anything that has to be said? Any last couple of things?
I'd just like to tuck in, Eric just posted on chat that he'd like to be part of the pilot, but also helping to develop a media plan, which I think is very exciting. So, yeah.
That's amazing. So guys, if we hadn't got back to you on the chat thread and you've expressed interest, or you want to just say, hey, I'm interested in being part of that pilot for the 6-week program, we will bring some ideas to the table, but we also want to collaborate and have it be a crowdsourced model that really does represent this open source thinking, so that it really is of and by and for the people. And you'll be able to either be an affiliate, and we'll have to we'll get those details going, but we've got an online program already kind of modeled out. We just have to kind of build out the elements, and probably August that'll get kicked out. So look for an update, an invitation, and we're right at the top of the hour, so we want to honor your time. We're just so grateful for you making the time to be on the call today. Thank you so much for everything, and please hit us offline with any questions, requests, or anything we can do to support you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.